Police called on Black Health Tech CEO at his own pool. So he exposed the truth live. Who gave you permission to swim here? Robert's voice cut through the humid Georgia air like a thunderclap. Marcus Hayes didn't flinch. He sank deeper into the aqua blue infinity pool, adjusting his dark aviator sunglasses as the late afternoon sun danced off the water. He had earned this moment of quiet, 42 years of relentless work building HavenHealth into the unicorn it was today. But Robert and Susan Lawrence, his next-door neighbors, saw only the color of his skin and the shade of his suit. In their eyes, a black man lounging by a private pool in one of Atlanta's most exclusive tech bubble enclaves was always an interloper. Marcus took a steady breath, tasting the sweet tang of mint in his iced tea. Beyond the wrought iron gate, children rode e-scooters along manicured sidewalks lined with pale magnolia blooms. A mockingbird flitted from branch to branch, its song echoing in the tense hush. That tiny creature, free to move without question, was the only authentic witness to what unfolded. Jamal, the Latino maintenance technician, peered through the gate's slats and discreetly started streaming the scene to the neighborhood feed. Marcus knew every camera lens trained on him, both the security sensors tied to his smart home network and the phone screens of curious onlookers. He welcomed it. Enjoying your Saturday? Mr. Hayes, Susan's tone dripped with disdain. The paper flower Marcus had carefully folded and placed on the fence post, an olive branch of sorts, remained untouched. That fragile symbol of peace seemed to wilt in the heat of Susan's glare. Just taking a moment, Marcus replied calmly. In the past, he might have let his temper flare. Today, he reveled in control. He recalled the cramped Oakland apartment of his youth, the day his mother had taught him to fold paper flowers out of scrap paper after a long day's work. She'd told him a single petal can outshine a storm. He carried that lesson, now folding it into every calculated breath. Robert scoffed. You've never lived here before. Who are you serving exactly? His question wasn't curious. It was a challenge. Susan's eyes narrowed, her lips pursed like she'd bitten into something sour. Marcus felt a familiar burn in his chest, the sting of inference that someone like him didn't belong. He set his glass down and rose tall in unhurried water, dripping from the hem of his linen shirt. Every inch of the patio seemed to pulse with tension. Kelly Nguyen, the local tech journalist, and the neighborhood's favorite underdog, watched from across the street, her camera poised. If this turned into a story, she would be the one to tell it. Marcus approached the fence, each step deliberate. Sunlight flickered on his dark skin. A bead of water trickled down his temple, tracing the line of determination etched in his jaw. I'm Marcus Hayes, he said, voice steady, but edged with steel. Founder and CEO of HavenHealth, and this is my home. Their skepticism wavered for a fraction of a heartbeat, long enough for Marcus to catch Susan's furrowed brow and Robert's clenched jaw. Then they shifted, recovering their posture of entitlement, but Marcus held to his ground. In that moment, his quiet defiance spoke louder than any protest. The mockingbird sang again, as if cheering him on. He peeled off his sunglasses and locked eyes with them. Am I allowed to stay? He asked softly. The question hung in the air, heavy as storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Before Robert could answer, Marcus turned away, sliding his fingers into the pool's cool water. The world seemed to hold its breath, and in that pregnant pause, everyone knew this wasn't over. Next, they would call on more than prejudice, they would call the authorities. But they hadn't reckoned on Marcus's next move. Did you really just pool shame the CEO of a billion-dollar health tech company? The scratchy voice of a teenager echoed down the street before the dial tone cut out. Marcus Hayes caught the tail end of the call. Jamal's underground livestream was already buzzing across every phone in the enclave. In less than 10 seconds, the unthinkable had happened. Robert Lawrence had dialed 911, claiming a suspicious man, trespassing, and acting aggressive. All because Marcus dared to breathe by his own pool. Marcus felt the familiar thrum of adrenaline. His mind raced through possibilities. Would the police arrive within minutes? Would the dispatcher take Robert's word over his? He closed his eyes and pictured his mother's crumpled paper flower, once a symbol of hope made from scraps, now an emblem of his resilience. He inhaled deeply, letting that childhood lesson ground him. A single petal can outshine a storm. He set his glass of mint-infused iced tea gently on the teak-side table, condensation beating like tiny watchful eyes. Every droplet was another witness. Without a flicker of panic, Marcus reached into his pocket and tapped the HavenHealth smart home app. Cameras clicked on silently across the property, 2 at the gate, 1 above the pergola, a discreet fisheye lens nestled in a palm tree. Live feeds streamed to his phone, and to Kelly Nguyon's inbox flagged for immediate publication. "They're calling the cops because they don't recognize me," he murmured. Susan's lips parted in a triumphant smirk as she jabbed at Robert's arm, her sun hat tilting precariously. He had never felt so small, and yet so colossal, like Atlas. He carried the weight of prejudice on his shoulders, but unlike the Titan, he was free to act. "Let's see how they like seeing the truth." Marcus said, his voice soft, but laced with steel. He circled to the main gate, not with hostility, but with deliberate calm. As he unlocked the electronic latch, Jamal's live stream flickered onto a dozen screens. Neighbors clustered at their windows. Kids paused mid-scooter ride, Kelly's camera lens catching every second of the standoff. The mockingbird returned to its perch, tilting its head as though in silent solidarity. From inside the guardhouse, a nervous security guard peeked out. "Sir, you need to stop." Before he could finish, Marcus held up one hand. "I need you to meet my neighbors," he said. Everyone's gaze snapped back to Robert and Susan, their faces flushed with a mix of shame and defiance. Officer Marcus called out, the moment blue and red lights painted the stucco walls. "I'm Marcus Hayes. I own this property." He pulled his driver's license from his pocket with the same slow precision he used to fold another paper flower, pressing it between his fingers until every crease told a story. In that suspended heartbeat, before the officer even acknowledged him, Marcus knew the next move would decide everything. Would the law side with prejudice or with proof? As the patrol car eased to a stop, rotors spinning on the horizon hinted at a bigger twist coming. The enclave held its breath. "Hands where I can see them," one officer barked as he stepped out of the patrol car flashlight slicing through the golden dusk. Marcus Hayes lifted his palm slowly, the dim glow reflecting off his driver's license like a spotlight. He met the officer's gaze, steadily refusing to blink. Inside him, a storm raged, anticipation, frustration, the echo of every time he'd been assumed out of place. But outwardly, he remained poised, anchored by the memory of his mother's paper flower, folded from scraps in their tiny Oakland kitchen. That fragile blossom had survived decades. Marcus planned to outlast every prejudgment thrown his way. "Sir, we got a report of a trespasser," the second officer said, voice clipped, but with a trace of doubt. "You fit the description." The first officer took Marcus's license and flipped it over, scrutinizing the photo. Outside the fence, neighbors pressed faces to windows. Kelly Nguyon's camera quietly recorded her single nod of encouragement, visible even through the phone screen. Jamal's livestream comment section lit up with support. "He's the CEO, y'all don't mess with Marcus." The collective breath of the community held tight. Marcus watched the badge slowly lower as the officer scrolled through his phone. Then, the unexpected twist, the officer's brow furrowed. HavenHealth. HavenHealth. He glanced at his partner. "Look here. CEO address, matches HOA records, deeds registered to a Marcus Hayes trust." His tone shifted, pulling back an accusation. Marcus exhaled softly, though his heart still hammered. He'd gambled on the system's transparency, trusting that his layers of evidence, ID, electric deed, IoT logs, would outshine false narratives. "I suggest you run your usual background check," Marcus said quietly. Tone even. "I'll be right here." He crossed his arms, water droplets tracing patterns down his linen shirt. A mockingbird took flight overhead, its wings whispering freedom. Below, the bronze paper flower trembled on the fence post, a mute testimony to resilience. The officers exchanged a glance, reluctant respect flickering in their eyes. The first officer pocketed the ID and stepped back. "You're clear, Mr. Hayes." His words landed like stones dropped into still water ripples of vindication, washing over Marcus's composure. But Marcus wasn't content with mere clearance. He stepped forward, lowering his voice, so only the officers and neighbors closest could hear. "Two things. One, I want a formal apology, logged here and on your dispatch. Two, you'll contact my lawyer if anyone mentions this incident as suspicious. I'm not a trespasser. I'm a homeowner, a business leader, and a man who refuses to be invisible." As Kelly's camera zoomed in on his steady expression, Marcus dialed his attorney, Jordan Blake, using the smart home speaker system. The crackle of connection was his victory anthem. "Jordan, it's Hayes. Situation resolved, but they tried to criminalize me in my own backyard." Beyond the fence, Robert and Susan Lawrence recoiled, their scowls melting into shame. But their humiliation was only one layer of justice. Marcus's triumph lay deeper. He'd harnessed technology, legal acumen, and unwavering self-belief to rewrite the script. The Enclave's smart home cameras, once viewed as surveillance, had become instruments of truth. The paper flower, once a childhood craft, now symbolized an unbreakable spirit. And yet, as the patrol car's lights faded into the suburban night, Marcus knew this was not the end. The community's eyes had opened, some in admiration, others in reluctant acceptance, but the real battle for respect had only just begun. The next chapter would demand more than vindication. It would require transformation. "Looks like the neighborhood watch just met its match," Marcus muttered under his breath as the patrol car pulled away, sirens fading into the evening. He watched the red and blue glow retreat down the street, then turned back to the gate where Robert and Susan Lawrence stood rigid as statues. His heart still thrummed from the confrontation, but the true risk lay ahead: a call to the Homeowners Association, and a showdown where prejudice met governance. With deliberate calm, Marcus lifted his phone and tapped the HOA app he'd quietly funded years ago. Within seconds, an alert pinged every resident emergency HOA meeting in 30 minutes at the community clubhouse. Topic: recent security breach and neighborhood conduct. He'd invited Kelly Nguyen to live stream the session, ensuring transparency. As the mockingbird flitted across the pool's surface, its song seemed to mock complacency. No more closed doors, no more whispered rumors in shadowed corridors. Inside the clubhouse, rows of sleek chairs faced a raised dais. Marcus arrived first, folding the bronze paper flower, the symbol of resilience and hope, in his palm, before placing it gently on a polished oak table. He glanced at Kelly, whose eyes gleamed with purpose behind the camera lens. Jamal slipped in with his tablet, connecting the live feed to neighborhood TVs. The room buzzed with curiosity, neighbors murmuring, casting wary glances at Robert and Susan as they shuffled in. Robert cleared his throat, adjusting his crisply tailored jacket. "This is absurd," he began, voice quivering. "We simply called security to protect our property." A smattering of nods rippled through the audience, some sympathetic, many uneasy. Susan folded her arms, but her mask of confidence trembled. Marcus watched them both, his chest tightening. He felt the weight of history, the countless times people in power weaponized fear against someone who looked like him. The HOA president, a gray-haired woman named Evelyn Chen, rapped the gavel. "Let's bring order," she said. "Mr. Hayes, you requested time on the agenda." A hush fell. Marcus stepped forward, the oak floor cool beneath his loafers. He unclasped the bronze flower and held it up. "This is a paper flower," he said, voice clear. "A symbol my mother taught me to fold when hope felt impossible. Tonight, I fold one more, the concept that any person, regardless of race, can't belong here." A collective breath drew in. Robert's face reddened. Marcus continued. "I believe in transparency. You saw me by the pool. You judged without knowing my name, my life's work, my community contributions. Afterwards, you called the police. That's not concern. That's prejudice." He tapped his phone. HOA records appeared on the big screen. His deed, his trust documents, charitable grants to the local youth tech initiative, and minutes showing his quiet but steady sponsorship of the annual neighborhood festival. Murmurs swelled. Kelly's live chat exploded with support. Finally, this is what justice looks like. Marcus for HOA president. The room tilted. Robert rose, voice cracking. You can't present this. This is personal data. Evelyn Chen raised a hand. It's community data. You funded this association, Mr. Hayes. You have as much right as anyone to speak. Susan's lips quivered. She looked away, eyes fixed on the fluttering mockingbird silhouette cast by the sunset through the clubhouse windows. Marcus pressed on. This meeting is not just about one phone call. It's about every time assumptions take precedence over facts. It's about rewriting our neighborhood story. One where inclusion isn't a checkbox, but a practice. He placed the flower on the dais. I'm not here to punish, he said. I'm here to forge understanding, to transform fear into accountability. He paused, locking eyes with Robert and Susan. Your apology should be public. Your donation to the Youth Tech Fund immediate. And I propose a new rule. Every homeowner must complete an unconscious bias workshop within the year. Silence swallowed the room. Then from the back, a ripple of applause. One by one, neighbors rose first, hesitant, then resolute. Robert's shoulders slumped as Susan stepped forward, voice barely audible. We're sorry. The broadcast caught it all raw, unfiltered contrition. As the room exhaled relief, Marcus felt a new tension. A brewing question of whether genuine change would follow words. The mockingbird's distant call seemed to beckon the work has only begun. As he left the dais, a notification flashed on his phone, a headline draft from Kelly's outlet, Black CEO, rewrites HOA rules, sparks community revolution. The next chapter was already writing itself. They called me a trespasser. Today, they call me a leader. The words echoed through the community clubhouse, even after the gavel's echo had faded, striking the hushed audience like lightning. Marcus Hayes stood center stage, bronze paper flower in hand, his heart racing with both triumph and the weight of responsibility. In the days since the HOA showdown, social media hadn't just celebrated his stance, it had rallied neighbors to rethink their biases. And now, gathered under the vaulted ceiling, they looked to him not with suspicion, but with hope. Kelly Nguyen's camera streamed live as Marcus clicked through images on the clubhouse's smart screen photos of the annual Youth Tech Hackathon he'd quietly funded last year, testimonials from scholarship students at the local STEM academy, and snapshots of Marcus volunteering at weekend coding camps. Each slide laid bare a truth Robert and Susan had overlooked. Marcus had invested in this community long before their prejudiced call to 911. He inhaled deeply the scent of magnolia blossoms drifting through the open windows and felt the mockingbird song flutter overhead, reminding him of freedom earned through perseverance. Leadership isn't about holding power. Marcus began voice calm but resonant. It's about lifting others, creating channels for voices that have been silenced. He pressed a soft button on his phone. The screen shifted to a live feed of Jamal's workshop in the pool house, where Latino and Black teenagers were collaborating on a health app prototype. The room erupted in applause, a ripple of validation washing over Marcus. He felt that childhood lesson burn bright a single-petal can, outshine a storm, and tonight, the paper flower had blossomed into a movement. As neighbors filed forward to shake his hand, Susan Lawrence approached hesitantly, cradling a small envelope. On behalf of Robert and me, she said, voice quivering, we'd like to contribute to your youth fund and attend the bias training you proposed. Marcus accepted the envelope, a donation, and a gesture of contrition, and nodded. Thank you. That's a powerful step. Her eyes glistened with relief, but Marcus knew one donation could not erase years of bias. He extended a hand to Robert next, who met his gaze with silent apology. Yet, not everyone was convinced. In the back row, an older couple exchanged wary looks. Some pockets of doubt lingered. Marcus recognized that true empowerment required more than words. It required systemic change. Starting tomorrow, he announced we'll launch a community council on inclusion. Every resident can join. We'll meet monthly to review policies, share stories, and hold each other accountable. The audience stirred, nodding at the prospect of a formal structure to foster unity. But even as the applause rose, a knock sounded at the door. The clubhouse lights flickered a jarring glitch that sent a hush through the crowd. Kelly's live stream capture caught every perplexed look. The screens went dark for a heartbeat, then displayed the HOA server's security alert, unauthorized access detected. Marcus's chest tightened. He'd assumed his use of technology for transparency was unbreakable, yet someone was probing the system. The bronze paper flower trembled in his hand, its petals fractal with possibility and peril. In that charged moment, the tension shifted from past injustices to an unseen threat. Who was trying to undermine the new council's efforts? Marcus felt that old familiar spark of risk, only this time the stakes were even higher. The mockingbird's distant trill wavered, as if warning him that the path to lasting change would not be smooth. And as the audience leaned forward, eyes on him, Marcus realized that real empowerment meant facing not just visible foes, but shadowy forces determined to preserve the status quo. The next battle was already taking shape, and no single petal could withstand it alone. Not everyone's ready for change, Marcus muttered, staring at the flickering server alert on the clubhouse screens. The room's hush felt colder than the Georgia night outside the mockingbird's song reduced to a distant echo. He'd expected resistance from old guard neighbors, but a cyber attack on the very platform he'd built to foster transparency. That crossed a new line. His pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the fierce resolve honed over decades of proving himself in boardrooms, courtrooms, and hostile neighborhoods. He'd weathered worse storms than this. He tapped his phone, rerouting the live stream to HavenHealth's secure backup servers. Jamal's workshop feed sprang back to life, and Kelly's camera swiveled back to the dais, capturing every tense face in the clubhouse. "We're experiencing a technical issue," Marcus announced, voice calm but carrying the weight of command. "It seems someone doesn't want our community council on inclusion to succeed." A ripple of startled murmurs swept the audience. Some leaned forward, others exchanged worried glances. The older couple at the back clasped each other's hands. Even Robert and Susan looked stricken with guilt and confusion. Marcus folded the bronze paper flower in his palm until its petals sharpened into a steely point. It wasn't just a symbol of hope, it was a weapon of truth. He pressed a hidden button on his smartwatch, activating HavenHealth's rapid response team. Within minutes, 2 tech specialists slipped in through the side door laptops in hand faces grim. They sent the security logs to Marcus's phone lines of code that told a damning story, multiple failed login attempts traced to an IP address masked through proxy servers. Someone was deliberately targeting the HOA network. He cleared his throat. "This is more than vandalism," he said, eyes scanning the crowd. "It's an attack on our shared values." He turned to Robert and Susan. "You thought calling the cops would intimidate me. Now they're trying to erase our progress." The couple's faces drained of color. Across the room, neighbors shifted uncomfortably. This was bigger than petty prejudice. It was systemic sabotage. Without a moment's hesitation, Marcus strode back to the smart screen, his phone mirroring the code. "We all have a choice. We can cower, or we can confront this head on." He tapped a final command. The HOA's network would switch to a blockchain-based validation, making future tampering impossible. The screens blinked, then solidified into a secure ledger. A cheer rose from the crowd. Tech triumphed over malice. But as the adrenaline surge settled, Marcus felt a fresh undercurrent of tension. The hackers hadn't stopped. New alerts blinked, hinting at deeper infiltration, perhaps within the HOA's own membership. He realized the hidden foe might be someone sitting right here. The paper flower trembled in his grip, its fragile petals mirroring the veneer of civility that masked deeper resentments. The battle for justice had morphed into a game of shadows, and Marcus knew he was walking a razor's edge. The Enclave's future hung in the balance, and one wrong move could shatter everything he'd fought to build. "You thought you could break us, think again." The words cut through the tense air of the clubhouse like a blade, drawing every eye back to Marcus Hayes. Seconds earlier, the green lock icon blinked red on the smart screen, signaling another breach attempt. Shadows flickered on the walls as neighbors huddled close, their whispered fears rippling through the packed room. Even Robert and Susan Lawrence, once his fiercest adversaries, looked on with wide-eyed disbelief. Marcus's chest tightened with the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just his battle. It was every resident's fight for truth and belonging. He folded the bronze paper flower, a memento from his mother's handmade lesson, until its petals curled into sharp angles, a makeshift star ready to pierce the darkness. Whoever's behind this thought they could silence our community council. Marcus continued, voice calm, but charged with intent. They underestimated what we stand for. Kelly Nguyin's camera panned over neighbors nodding in solidarity. Single mothers balancing toddlers, retired veterans in golf polos, young tech entrepreneurs, and the once skeptical older couple who now exchanged determined glances. The community had transformed from bystanders into a united front. Marcus tapped his smartwatch again, summoning HavenHealth's chief security officer, Nadia Alvarez, who swept in with a tablet displaying real-time network diagnostics. She pointed to a hidden backdoor buried in the HOA software, an Easter egg left by the original developer that a malicious insider had exploited. "This is internal," Nadia whispered, lowering her voice so only Marcus could hear. "Someone on the council or with access planted this code. They've been watching us from the inside." The revelation hit like thunder. Eyes darted toward the dais, then to the entryway. Jamal's live stream blared notifications. Insider threat, trust. No one murmurs morphed into a low hum of anxiety and outrage. Marcus's pulse pounded, but he refused to let panic take hold. He straightened, voice reverberating through the room. "We're not victims. We're a community, and communities hold themselves accountable." From the back, the HOA president, Evelyn Chen, stepped forward, face pale but resolute. "I've served this council for 12 years, she began, voice quavering. "I never imagined someone here would betray us." "Let me see the logs." Nadia projected audit trails, timestamps, user IDs, IP matches. The crowd leaned closer, tension crackling. Finally, a name illuminated in stark relief. Council member number 4, the longtime treasurer, a close friend of Robert and Susan. A collective intake of breath. Robert's jaw clenched. Susan's eyes darted away. The accused council member, an older gentleman known for his polite demeanor, rose, lips trembling. I only wanted to protect our property values," he stammered, eyes pleading. "I never meant to hurt anyone." His confession echoed with the weight of unspoken prejudices that had festered beneath the surface for years. Marcus closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, remembering his mother's final words. "Stand tall, even when others bow to fear." He opened his eyes, voice gentle but uncompromising. Acknowledgement is the first step toward healing, but actions speak louder than excuses. He swiped his phone, registered a motion that broadcasted the audit logs live to every resident's device. "I propose we remove all unauthorized members, replace them with volunteers from every background, and we'll rebuild our digital defenses together." A hush fell, then a ripple of applause. The treasurer lowered his head, shame heavy in his shoulders. He stepped down, nodding meekly. Marcus turned to Evelyn and the remaining council members. "Will you stand with me?" Kelly's camera captured every hand, going up slowly at first, then in a wave of unity. The mockingbird's song drifted in through the open windows, its melody a promise of renewal. As the final hand reached up, Marcus felt a surge of hope. This was the transformation he'd fought for. Yet, in the hush that followed, his phone buzzed a new alert from HavenHealth's OSINT monitor, a message on an underground forum praising the sabotage and vowing a next move. The community had won this round, but the shadows still loomed. And Marcus knew the greatest test facing an unseen adversary was only just beginning. "You think the battle's over? You've only seen the beginning." The words scrawled in the underground forum flashed on Marcus Hayes' screen like a dare. He stared at it long enough for the muted clubhouse lights to feel like a spotlight on his conscience. The community had rallied, the corrupted council member had stepped down, and the digital defenses had been strengthened, but somewhere in the shadows, someone was already plotting the next strike. Marcus felt the chill of uncertainty. This was the price of change. Every victory invited a new test. He folded the bronze paper flower, its once delicate petals now creased into a sharp star, reminding himself that resilience wasn't passive. It was the art of bending without breaking. Outside, the mockingbird's song drifted over the clubhouse roof, a reminder that freedom had its own soundtrack, one that thrived in the face of adversity. He breathed deeply, tasting mint in the still air, and summoned Kelly Nguyen and Nadia Alvarez to his side. Jamal's tablet displayed live comments from neighbors. Don't let them win. Marcus, we stand with you. The collective voice of the community was a lifeline in the gathering storm. Marcus spoke to Kelly first. Prepare a post-match analysis. Honest, transparent, highlighting our structural changes and ongoing risks. Her nod was sharp, determined. Then he turned to Nadia. I need a 24/7 watch on the HOA network and HavenHealth's OSINT alerts. No blind spots. She tapped commands on her laptop eyes, locked on lines of code. Even as the last echo of the forum's threat rippled through his phone, Marcus knew that confrontation alone wouldn't secure the future. True security required constant vigilance, rooted in trust, not fear. Tonight, though, he would address the community one last time. He stepped to the front of the clubhouse, the oak dais, polished beneath his loafers, and faced the expectant crowd, neighbors from every walk of life, unified by a deeper purpose. The bronze flower lay at his feet, a silent sentinel. This journey tested us in ways we never expected. He began, voice steady. We confronted our own biases, exposed betrayal from within, and pushed back against forces determined to divide us. His gaze swept the room, making eye contact with the young coder in the back row, the retiree clutching a cane, the couple who had once doubted his place here. We did it together. He pressed a button on the smart screen. A looped montage played clips of the pool confrontation, the 911 call, the HOA showdown, the cyber defense victory, and finally the community council's first meeting. Each frame was a stanza in their shared story of resilience. The room was silent, the montage's final image lingering the bronze flower petals, unfurled, pinned to the clubhouse bulletin board. It was a living emblem of their solidarity. But resilience isn't a single day's work, Marcus said as the screens faded to black. It's a commitment to each other and to the values that bind us. We must remain watchful of our actions, our assumptions, and the barriers we still need to break. He reached down, picked up the paper star, and held it aloft. This star reminds us that even when darkness gathers, we can light the way together. A hush fell, broken by the mockingbird's triumphant trill drifting through the open windows. In that charged silence, a notification pinged on his phone, a direct message from a community member on the forum, offering insider information about the hacker's identity. Marcus felt the familiar surge of resolve. The next battle lines were drawn not against faceless algorithms or nameless code, but against a real person hiding in plain sight. He pocketed the phone, walked off the dais, and joined the circle of neighbors waiting to take action together. The mockingbird song soared into the night, and as Marcus looked up at the sky, he smiled faintly. The story wasn't ending, it was evolving, and he was ready.